is funded by viewers like you. Support our independent journalism at patreon.com/narrative.
Oh, can't hear you.
Can't hear you.
It's even better if I turn the microphone on. That's much better. Hi, guys. It's Friday. I'm allowed to do these things, I think. It's Friday on Narrative Live. It's the after show. Look who's in the house. Greg Oliar is here. Hi, Greg. How you doing?
I am well, thank you.
Lincoln's Bible is here from LA. How you doing, LB?
I'm here. I'm alive.
Yes,
Yeah.
It's something these days. And Noel Kassler is here. Thank you for joining us tonight, Noel.
My pleasure.
I've got one picture that I've reserved for you. It's in my files, and it's been waiting for you to come on the show. So we'll get to that picture a little bit later on. But what we will do today is go through a review of the news of the day, and then we'll just yak about a bunch of stuff. And also some in-house stuff we'll be talking about a little bit later on. But we'll get to that business later on. So lots in the news, especially in the last few hours. It's because one of the things that has come up is, of course, this guy, one of my favorite people in the entire world to report on, in the entire Trump administration. And I'm spending a little time building up because I want to be able to show you this photo of, where is he? Jared Kushner. And here he is. Oh, this is what that means. Don't we love that photo? My favorite Jared photo there is.
Oh.
He looks so lovable there. But what's up with Jared today, Noel? Tell us a little bit about what's going on with Jared Kushner that we've just found out in the last few hours.
Good God, Jared, that photo. Well, it was reported that they set up a shell company. Essentially, the Trump campaign started an LLC so they could take all the funds and hide how they were dispersing them. And it came out today through some reporting at Business Insider and the New York Times that they had basically a slush fund anywhere between $617 million and $700 million that they funneled through this LLC that on the original papers, Lara Trump and I believe Mike Pence's nephew, it was his nephew, I don't know his exact name, John Pence.
John Pence, yes.
John Pence, which is that's a strong name. Anyway, they were listed as officers of this LLC, and basically they funneled all the campaign cash to themselves. It's come out that they were paying themselves. They were paying Jared. They were paying Ivanka, and paying Ivanka.
So that's $1 billion fund that they had for that $1 billion campaign. They were all running around explaining that they were going to, what do they call it? The Death Star? Right. That about half of that they decided to send over to what they called American-made media consultants. $617 million in total went to Jared's little enterprise over there. Don't know if they did very much. Lara Trump is the president of that company. John Pence, as you mentioned, is the vice president. It seems like a giant grift, and it seems like they really weren't contesting the elections in the first place.
Exactly. It's not bad work if you can get it, right?
Right.
Remember, everybody was wondering a few months ago, where did all their money go? They had $1 billion. Now we know where the money went, And I'll mention Brad Parscale because he was handpicked by Jared, So he was probably, his role was being quiet about where this money was getting distributed, so to speak. Because
it's interesting you raised Brad, because I wonder if that's who's leaking the story. He's been he hasn't been touched or hasn't spoken to the campaign for a while, hasn't spoken to the family for a while, and has been out there speaking to Fox News and others, hinting that he might have some secrets. And in fact, the family has been concerned that he might be revealing some secrets. This could be his handiwork right here.
I think you just solved the mystery. I hadn't thought of it. I'm not as sharp as you are in that. I think you.
Or it's conspiratorial.
Yeah. But that was great. I think that's absolutely correct, because obviously this wouldn't have come out any other way, and that's the whole point. Who else would know? Yeah, right. And that's the whole point of the shell company. They were hiding where this money would go to. So I think you're absolutely right. I think that's what happened. And I'll mention one more thing. I would always tell people, Trump is like, Trump is the figurehead of this thing. I would warn people that behind the scenes, Jared and Ivanka are the ones playing the long game and trying to get rich. And this is a perfect example of what I was always telling you. You know, Trump wants music to play when he walks in the room. He wants to get high and he wants to hit on women. Those other guys want to amass a fortune and rule the world. And this is a step towards that. You know, it's a scary thing to be revealed, you know, that they're going to come out of there with about $500 million in their coffers.
Can I ask a question about this? Because I was just seeing the headlines and I saw the news, but I didn't get into details on the story. So it was a shell. It was an offshore company. Is that what
It's a
it
shell
was?
company.
It's a
LLC.
corporation. LLC.
Okay. And was the money coming from, they were raising the money into the campaign? Is this dark money from donors? Is that known?
It was donor money, and it was essentially laundered. You know, once when it's contributed
that just
directly,
sounds like money laundering.
It sure
That's
does.
just Jared doing his fucking money laundering.
It's essentially what it is. It's an FEC kind of violation. It's a way to get around campaign contribution rules and not say where the money's going.
And the campaign staff kept asking what's going on at American-made consultants, couldn't find much of an answer. And also it involves the Republican Party, which put in a lot of money into this consultancy as well, without really getting very much in return. So that's interesting too, because it could embroil the entire organization over there.
Yeah, and it's the same thing they've been doing all along. This is a mirror image of the inaugural fund. This is the same thing. We're going to raise a lot of money, not spend it where it's supposed to be spent, and keep it for ourselves. It's just like he's doing in Georgia right now. Trump is raising all this money, and the two Republican candidates in Georgia are like, where's the cash? And he's like, what do you mean? That's my cash.
Yeah.
You know?
He got away with $250 million just for his little fraud campaign that he's been running over the last few weeks with Giuliani. He raised $250 million for a PAC that only he will have control over. So there you go.
Exactly.
Greg, you've been awfully quiet.
It's American-made consultants. That's the name of it.
American-made media consultants.
Media.
Okay, so made. I guess, is that like in the mafia sense? Is that what that means? I don't know.
It could be. It could be. Yeah. It certainly sounds like it. I mean, it's really
a bunch of foreign-owned assets are calling themselves American-made.
Fuck off. It's so true. So ironic. Yeah. Well, there you go. So we'll start off with Jared. We'll stay with Jared because there's so much grifting going on today's show that we'll just kind of slide into his next grift. I don't even know where to go to next because that was insane. But remember this thing? Ivanka Trump put out this thing saying Moderna NIH vaccine is only the second candidate in a week to show strong results. And basically, she was saying that way back in January, before the coronavirus was even a big deal, Donald Trump was already in bed with Moderna developing this vaccine. Well, fast forward to today when we find out that, in fact, there's a bunch of Pfizer vaccines on the shelf, not getting to people's where they need them, to people's states where they are hoping to get vaccinated in the next week or so. It turns out that some of that Pfizer, in fact, millions of doses of that Pfizer vaccine remain on the shelf for no good reason. Now, later on in the day, we found out that the reason they were being delayed was because of the snowstorm, and there was some concern that one of these planes could crash, and they wanted to reserve the stockpile. Sounds a bit fishy to me. It sounds like there are lots of vaccine doses being left on the shelf. And considering the history of this administration, it wouldn't surprise me if there's some weird thing going on back there. And that weird thing everyone on the internet today was saying involved this guy you see on the front cover of the National Post, which is not a newspaper I'd normally go to, but it does summarize the story quite well. And this guy is Moncef Slaoui, I think is how you say his name. He is not only the head of Moderna's vaccination drive, he's also the head of the warp speed effort that Donald Trump's administration has been putting together, which is basically driving the delivery of these vaccines to your homes. And as it turns out, or to your doctor's offices, and as it turns out, there's a bit of a competition going on between Moderna and Pfizer as to who sort of will be crowned, sorry about the graphic here, but who might be crowned sort of king of the vaccines. Is it possible, asks the internet today, about whether Mr. Moncef Slaoui has somehow slow down the delivery of Pfizer in order to get more market room, I guess, for Moderna? It's a question. It's an allegation. We're not sure that there's an answer yet. Anyone want to try comment on that?
Wait, what is he the head of? Is he the head of Spectre? Is that what it is? That's
Yes,
what he looks like to
basically.
me. He's like number 2 there. That's what he
Central
looks like.
casting, right? He just needs a cat and
Where do they find these people?
Oh my God.
All he
I
needs is he
can't.
just needs a little, he needs a little cat, a little
He
white
does.
cat with a diamond necklace.
Billions of dollars.
Yeah. Oh, I don't. Oh, look. There's got to be a point where
Oops.
this sort of joke of or this whatever this con is of like we're too incompetent to follow through, we're too incompetent to really plan, the vaccine's all sitting in storage because we don't know what to do with it, this sort of utter incompetence of actually just now rolling out. You couldn't roll this out appropriately. Come on, guys. I just, there's a point where we have to stop buying that even as an excuse, because it's horrific. They are intent. There's intent in here. There's an intent at this point. There's an intent to be incompetent. You're choosing incompetence. They're choosing it because they don't fucking care.
Well, they told the states that they were getting a certain amount and then didn't deliver. So people are planning to get their vaccines, and they don't even if it's true that the snowstorm was the reason they decided to postpone the delivery. They didn't tell anyone that that's the reason they decided to postpone the delivery.
Right.
They just didn't deliver. So now the states are going to have to
communication is
yeah.
shit, right? It's
Yeah.
like that's intentional. You could get your communication together. Fuck, it's a fucking pandemic. People are dying. You know, out here we were at like zero. We have 0% ICU beds in Southern California, which is what I wanted to talk about,
Yeah.
and it tails into this, and we can get into that in more detail.
No, we can talk about it right now because it's part of the story,
Well,
of course.
it's like
Terrific.
that's LA County, San Diego County, and the Inland Empire at least. You guys, this is like, oh, I can't
That
even.
becomes the tipping point every time the
It's like
ICUs get so full.
18 million people have no ICU beds. 18 million Americans.
Terrific.
And that's not just for COVID. The ICU beds are for anything that you might need an
Right.
ICU for.
Right.
That's the
Heart
thing. It's
attacks,
not
all of a
just
sudden there's no heart attacks, right? Or we're not
Yeah.
going to have any heart attacks, and because it's crazy. And it's not that there won't be beds. It's just this. It's this indicator of how on fire this thing is right now. It's just on fire. Our hospitals are going to collapse under this. I can't see that they wouldn't. And these guys can't even fucking make sure that the communication around a vaccine is getting where And is it so that Moderna gets a big, huge surge? I don't know, Zev.
Could be. Could be. It could be that they. I mean, if it wasn't the Donald
The
Trump
level of
administration,
malevolence that's
you'd count it out. But it's possible because of the enormous amount of profiteering that's been going on. On a narrative, we've been detailing it, since, I don't know, maybe June this year, sorry. We've been detailing how much profiteering is going on by this administration, how from the very beginning, from the testing, from those testing stations that we're going to have, to that big project that we're going to do to monitor how many cases there were around the country, to the vaccines, and even some of the other material, that the side issues like the PPE, those have all been, profiteered on by this administration. Not a single one of those things has not had a scandal attached to them. So it is, you can't discount that this is the case as well with Moderna.
If I'll say this, and we need to have, I keep beating the same horse here, but we need to have, as soon as February, a 9/11 style commission to look into the pandemic response, because we really need the truth about all this stuff. If Jared and Ivanka are profiting from these vaccines, and if we are waiting on that, I don't know what the punishment needs to be, but nothing is too gruesome in my imagination for that. I can't imagine something worse than what they're doing. What's worse than having a goddamn plague infect people and kill off hundreds of thousands of Americans so you can make how much money do these fucking people need?
And well,
It's so disgusting.
they've already done it. I mean, we saw what happened with the PPP, with the protective gear and stuff in March. We've already seen Jared maneuver our government's resources towards the most profitability for themselves. He stalled a lot of rollouts. He appointed his his friend from college, his college roommate at NYU, as one of the heads of the whole like pandemic response group that he put together at the White House. This whole thing has been geared towards how much money could they make. And as you mentioned before, Zev, Ivanka tweeted last January about the Trump administration's partnership with Moderna. This was in January when they were still telling people it was going to go away. See, there you go. You know, so this was the end. This was the end game all along. And I'll say something from working with these guys, like the chaos and incompetence is a feature, not a bug. It goes to what I was saying about Trump.
That's right.
He's the big buffoon that you think he's too stupid. This is all just a mistake. You know, I used to make this analogy, like he's the guy who walks into a store and like flops down on the floor and pretends to have like a seizure or something. So they go behind the counter and empty the cash register. That's always been their strategy. Like he's so bumbling, he clearly couldn't be this evil. He is that evil. And I'll say one more thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
He's not that evil he's not that bumbling behind the scenes. If you listen to the Woodward tapes, if you listen to the Lev Parnas tapes when they were talking about Ambassador Yanovich, or I might get her name wrong, he's always knows exactly what the end game is. He plays up, I'm the dumb buffoon in public because it works for him. It's like the dumb kid who wants to play dumb to get out of trouble. But they know that there's a buck to be made here, and they don't get out of bed without making a buck.
It's literally, look over there.
Right.
Squirrel. That's what it is.
And in this case, they've got so many schemes going on. Everyone's looking all over the place. Like you don't know where to begin.
Exactly.
It's even. Go ahead, Noel. Finish. Go ahead.
No, you go. You go, Greg.
I was going to bring up what you said about the roommate from Jared's roommate was in that special secret task force, and the task force actually came up with a plan that would have worked, and Jared told them, "Nah, we're not going to do it
because there was no money in it."
Yeah, exactly. But you know, the roommate got even Jared's friends were trying to convince him. And let's keep reviewing this, okay? Jared Kushner, I can't remember if it was February or March, but it was early on, made the decision: we're not going to do this because the governors in the blue states, it's New Jersey, it's New York, it's California. These are blue states. We're just going to let them get sick and die, and we'll blame the governors. And this is the state where Kushner was born and where his parents live. It's the state of New York where he lives with his wife. And it's the state of California where his brother lives and where he's there all the time. These are his own friends and family that he's consigning to doom.
That's right.
And so I don't know. This guy, if we're not going to have like an execution in this country, if we're not going to do the death penalty, he needs to go to whatever that Florence thing is and be put in a hole where we don't hear from him ever again. The next news bit we hear from Kushner after he's convicted of these crimes is 50 years from now when the reports are that he died in jail. That's what we want from him.
But you know what you're going to get?
I got to ask Noel something. I got to ask you something, Noel. I'm sorry to interrupt, but because you know these people personally, you've interacted with them. What can you give us that his interpretation, like how he's going to, they really are skipping around as if they're going to get away with all of this, right? It's like, what the fuck? Are they dumb? Because I think he's the dumb as a pile of rocks, Jared Kushner, and doesn't know it.
Yes.
Born on third base, thinks he hit a triple. Okay. All right. So they're just fucking morons. But is there anything else inside of there that what could they be thinking? Is it that they've got a plan to run away anyway with their billions and go, live in Dubai? What the fuck?
They're not going to have to go to Dubai. It was also reported last week he bought an island. I forget the name of the island, but he bought a plot of land from Julio Iglesias on a private island off the coast of Miami. And that island has private security that goes around in boats with guns and protects it, okay? So they got a $30 million piece of land. They'll build a $50 million fortress on that land. They'll have a perimeter of armed boats, and then they'll have all these. But
that has nothing to do with law enforcement and with investigations.
Everyone keeps saying that, I don't believe it. You're talking to a guy who's seen Trump get away with everything his entire life, who literally raped a woman in Barney's and walked down the street back to his office, knowing he'd get away with it. That's the kind of these people they are. Kushner's dad went to prison because he accepted a plea deal. because there was a secret that they didn't want to come out.
Right.
and Chris Christie made him aware of it, and he said, okay, I'll go do a year and a half or 2 years or whatever it was in Arkansas, where he went to federal prison, which, by the way, Kushner visited him every weekend. Every
Yeah, I
weekend
know.
Kushner flew down and visited him. So his dad, Charles Kushner, has a big part in all this family scheming. Look what Kushner did with 666 Fifth Avenue. Most people would see that as a prison sentence. Like, wait, I took $1 billion loan and now it's not a profitable building? Like, I'm going to be dead, financially. I'm going to be ruined. Instead, he goes over, shakes down gutter, right? Gets UAE and Saudi Arabia and all these guys to do a blockade.
And Fannie Mae.
Right. And all of a sudden they're bailing him out. So I get your point, and I want justice as much as Greg does, as much as we all do. But these are people that have skipped on culpability their whole life.
Well, you know who does that? You know who actually gets away with that? Mobsters and fucking spies.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
People from organized crime and intelligence. Those are the people that get away with this shit and walk around and skip around as if nothing could touch them because they know they have fucking cards to play. They know they have cards to play.
And that's what you've got here, mobsters and spies, right? I mean,
can I say one thing? This is the analogy I always make about Trump. When he built all those casinos at Atlantic City, he would stiff the guys who put in the carpet, the guys who put in the brass railing, all these tradesmen in South Jersey. He would stiff them on their bills and hold them up in court until they got pennies on the dollar if they held out that long. A lot of these guys had to kill themselves because they lost their livelihood, right? You only do something like that in South Jersey, where anybody could go meet somebody in a diner and take out a hit. He knows he's untouchable. He's always known he's untouchable. And his children are creations of that. They were bred with that sort of impunity. And that's how they're behaving. It's incumbent upon us, like Greg said. We have to do something about this, or we can't look ourselves in the eye of the nation anymore. Yeah,
well, what's going to happen?
I mean, time to prove it.
Do we know yet who the Attorney General is? I know they were floating Merrick Garland around a little bit yesterday, but we don't know yet who the AG is. I mean, if Biden is true to his words, and he should be, we're likely going to have an independent AG that's going to decide independently whether they're going to be prosecuting these guys. But there seems to be something in the system that lets them get away with it time and time again. And I don't know what that is.
I mean, I know what it is.
You know what it is.
Greg and I wrote articles about it, right? Like, we know what it is. But the other thing, this ties in interestingly with this sort of intelligence story that has been coming around. And we just learned some more information today that the Biden transition team has been having to ask specifically. So the transition on the Trump side, in terms of the intelligence, they've been given instructions of, with they ask questions, give them what they need, but there's no sort of coming from the existing administration. Here's sort of the roadmap of what's going on in the world, right? At all these levels of clearance. There's nothing like that coming for the Biden team. They have to ask and ask and ask and ask, and then they'll get if they ask. But it does tie into the Attorney General, because it's hard to pick your Attorney General if you don't know the scope and the nature of the biggest threats that the nation is facing. Is it the domestic terrorism? Is that as big as we all feel it is and kind of know it is? Is that lurking under the surface? Well, Biden should be getting that information so he can say, okay, for the first couple of years, the most important thing that we have to tackle in terms of our national security, in terms of law enforcement, would be this domestic terror threat that we've cultivated, right? That's been unleashed in this nation, and the radicalization that's been going on. So that might be a different AG than something was like, no, it really is these fucking multi-tiered hacks that are happening on all of our systems and our infrastructure. It's just, you gotta, hopefully there's somebody who can be an AG for all of that. That's what you go for, but it's hard to prioritize. You might need that. It's hard to prioritize who Biden would think would be best in the role immediately. Is it the deterioration of the law enforcement, of the institutions themselves? Do you need a top tier sort of hardcore manager who can go in and just put the house back together again because it's fucking crumbling because it's been under assault for 4 years? We don't know. Biden is supposed to be getting that level of intelligence and information, and I don't know that they're getting it to be able to make that assessment. Any AG is going to be better than this shit show we've had from the toilet guy, the big dick toilet guy, whatever the fuck that guy's name was. Jeff Sessions, fucking evil Keebler in there. That was at least, I don't know what, at least he recused himself, that little fucking guy. Right. And then, and then this fucking Mr. Shutdown King, corrupt, this fucking, troll.
Mr.
Right,
Barr.
going around and just,
I actually think Mr. Barr has decided not to stick around because he doesn't want to have to deal with the transition, either because he doesn't want to tell what he knows, or maybe because he is under suspicion himself. He certainly has committed crimes in there, and he might be worthy of prosecution himself, if you ask me.
I agree with you, Zeb. And I also
sign me up for that.
Yeah, and I also think he knows that maybe there's another play like Jeff Rosen has. Is it Jeff Rosen who's now the acting AG?
Exactly.
Jeff Rosen's the guy who let Ryan Zinke off the hook for all the insider kind of malfeasance that he did with Indian tribes, that he did in Puerto Rico with Whitefish, electrical company, giving a contract to a company with 11 employees. This guy got away with all that. Zinke and Scott Pruitt were the two luckiest guys in the Trump administration because they were the two biggest grifters at the beginning. Mm-hmm. They did their grift and they got out of there, and people never even mentioned their names. But I mention it because Jeff Rosen was the guy who clearly didn't care about his reputation to let Zinke, let Zinke go free. So I'm thinking there's maybe a bigger plan in the works that even Bill Barr, the guy who got, Elliot Abrams off for El Mozote, a massacre, where we massacred a village of women and children in El Salvador, right? That was his first big thing in the 80s, right? So even that guy was like, hey, this thing you guys got planned, this is too much for me. I'm leaving on the 23rd. I'm going to Aspen for the holidays. You guys, you do your thing, but let me out of here and give me my pardon,
Could be. I mean, I'm certainly really interested to see when someone actually puts together the entire list of how much grifting has been going on and how much covering up has been going on by the Department of Justice. It's going to be phenomenal. I mean, it's going to be a phenomenal amount of money, trillions of dollars probably.
Oh, yes. Yes.
And meanwhile, we can't. What are we getting? $600?
Exactly.
Are we even getting that? Did they agree yet?
I don't know if they have.
If you're lucky, Greg.
I don't know if they have.
If
they're
you're
lucky.
a good boy, you might get $600 in January in your stock.
Wow.
And Jared Kushner walks away with $617 million.
Right.
I mean,
exactly.
That's one grift. That's one thing that they've done. Before we leave,
maybe he can go to that island and we can build a fortress around the island and put guards around the island, and he can just live there for the rest of his fucking life and never leave.
To prison.
I'm telling you, these people are They're going to run away. They're going to run away.
I think there will be some of that. I don't want to leave the Moderna story, so let's backtrack a little bit because LB, you did some phenomenal research on Mr. What's his name?
I did, but I haven't been able to check my research. So I just.
I think you're close. I think you're close on this one.
I think it's right. Yeah.
So Mr. Monsef Slaoui, I don't know how you say his name, who we mentioned is in charge of Moderna's effort to vaccinate and also part of the Trump administration. So he's not conflicted at all. He's got a couple of offshores. I don't know if you want to tell people about these.
Well, that looks like Alpha Offshores Limited.
Yeah. So he owns this thing called MS Franchising, or was the director of MS Franchising.
I believe so. I could be wrong. I have to double check all of this, Zev. I'm sorry I didn't get time to do all that. But at the time, I did find his name in there. And then a lot of times when I post stuff like this, you guys, I'm sorry to say, it does get watched. And then all of a sudden I'll find that there was something that I got in the Bloomberg thing that's gone, right? Or an open secret. Boom, it's gone. So I haven't had a chance to double. I just want to say that, but I do believe this is him, and I'm only clarifying that because there's a difference in the spelling of the first name. So maybe there's two Monsef Slowies who are attached to a venture fund called MS Franchising Limited. That's possible. It could be a common name. I don't think so, but it's possible. Anyway,
I think often they misspell their names, right? As you well know, they misspell their names on purpose so they can't be tracked.
And Zeb, did you see what this was from? Is this from Bahama Leaks or the Panama Papers? I don't think it's Paradise. That makes a difference too in terms of what if this is Mossack Fonseca, this is really fucking bad. I'm sorry, guys. And then we have
dates
Alpha
back to 2008, I think. So I don't know.
It's not
I don't know
the formation of the company. It would be in that graphic. I'll look again, and we'll come in. if this was a setup, as this was offshore set up by Mossack Fonseca, that's a very specific thing. And then the Alpha Offshores Limited in there, which would seem to be implying, and I believe you can click and check on all that that's probably connected to Alpha Bank.
And that's the really amazing thing is there's Alpha Bank, the Russian bank based in the UK with the ties to the Trump administration, as we've been following all along, and with various royal family members in the UK. There he is, looking like he's tied to them in some sort of offshore holding, which is
right.
just
and
fascinating.
This all needs to be, you guys, just dig in there, check it all. I'm not trying to, I didn't have a time to go back because this was a while back, and my brain has been a little mushy lately in terms of time and, and we're all COVIDing out here, but I'm not trying to do that Tuesday Live. I'm just sort of saying, this all looks exactly what it looks like, and we need to go and really dig further and check it.
It's mysterious enough to have a person who works at Moderna running the administration effort here. I mean, that's bad enough.
He's a venture capitalist.
Yeah. Now he's got offshore connections to Alpha Bank.
Have you guys have you ever been to Monte Carlo? Because he looks like every guy you see in Monte Carlo. There's a really fancy hotel I stayed in once, and he's like that guy who's sitting around a table.
L'Hermitage,
and you're like, I didn't see it. I didn't see anything. Yeah.
Now remember that last week they came up with this herd immunity thing. An email was leaked saying that the administration was actually pursuing herd immunity as an actual strategy in order to handle COVID. And I think the quote was horrible. It's something like, we want them to be infected, and it talks about children and others. We want them to be infected so they could get a large scale of immunity going. It strikes me as you look at all these little bits and pieces of what's going on here, that if their intention was really to basically kill a certain number of people in order to either gain immunity or I don't know, sell enough vaccines, that it makes that whole event when Donald Trump got COVID and had that whole helicopter arrival and that big PSA, it makes me think that might have been actually an ad to get people to get COVID.
I think you solved two mysteries tonight. The first one earlier in the program, and now this, Zev.
Because it does feel like that.
That whole thing felt wrong, and then the idea of like herd immunity was basically like Trump knew the economy was the only thing that was going to get him reelected. Right. So taking coronavirus seriously and shutting things down and having people wear masks was not in his best interest. And he was aware of that before Easter. Remember, he's like, everything's going to open at Easter. So he knew that he was in trouble if we treated this as the medical emergency it was. So I think herd immunity became the answer. Like, hey, it's not that scary. You'll get it and you'll be fine. So I think you're right. I think maybe that's what that trip was all about.
Especially if you still want to sell vaccines and make money off vaccines because of your Moderna partnership, then you really are okay with putting out that image of saying you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Speculation, big speculation, but it's fun.
I think on top of this, because I'm looking at the comments too, is to not collapse these guys and their disgusting profiteering and whatever kind of horse shit they're performatively doing, or if he was sick, why do you need what the fuck is this garbage that coming out of these garbage human beings? Don't collapse that with the science behind the vaccines and what good vaccines can do. I'm actually it really should upset every American and everyone on the planet that we're actually not able to celebrate what just fucking happened with humanity. My God, science is saving us. You guys, if you get into the science of the vaccine and how it was developed and these researchers and what they did and what they went through, this is an incredible moment in humanity. If this science behind this is going into the RNA and doing all this, and it looks like it's very solid, it works at an incredible efficacy rate, we're going to be able to solve pandemics. This is big shit. And human beings accomplished all that without the leadership of the greatest, most powerful nation on the face of the earth, of the free nation, being this fucking criminal enterprise. We still did this. Human beings came together all over these scientists came together and they fucking did it. And let me tell you, vaccines, it's not like, oh, it's a great big huge fucking profit center. Oh, it's not. No, That's not what vaccines are. I'm sorry, guys. It's not.
Is it not?
And
Because
if you,
it's a lot of vaccines and they
no,
cost a lot of money.
if they put, it's a lot, but it's not like other products. It's not like insulin, right? If you put and if in the middle of a pandemic, your Pfizer or your Moderna or any of these, and your product hurts people, that's the end of your company. That's it. It's it. It's over. There's no, your stock tumbles. There are no partners. No one will fucking work with you. I don't care how many products you think you have in the pipeline. It's over for these guys. These protocols, these drugs, they have to work and work well. They wouldn't be putting out bad science on this. And so it's important for me that gets separated from the criminal grifting that these fuckers are doing. Right? Or the sabotaging they're doing and all of that has nothing to do with the science. And that, God forbid, you guys, that the human condition doesn't have vaccines. You can't even imagine what the human condition would be without vaccines. And I know there's a lot of anti-vaxxers out there. I get it. I get the fear. I really, really, really do. But people are fucking dying. This is bad. It's a plague. Right? And we got to address it. And we have this incredible moment of achievement, and it's all being sullied by this horrible criminal crime grifting family bullshit mobsters. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's true.
Right?
Science is really strong, and they certainly are.
Yes, it is.
Involved in also, the other side of it is they're also involved in making sure the disease spread and is killing as many people as it possibly can. So you can't not, you can't look,
I know.
look at those two things
That's
together.
Not wrong. That's not wrong. They said, we want everybody infected. Send the kids to school. That was going on at the same fucking time. This push to put children in school was happening at the same goddamn time that they're sending these emails now around saying, what's Fauci doing? We want as many people infected as possible. People should be, it's outrageous. It's outrageous. It's outrageous.
Anyone else want to jump in on this topic? Because I want to move on to the next one.
Just about vaccines really quickly. I know it's one of these things, we're now far enough removed from World War II, where the people that were involved as primary witnesses are very old, or they were kids at the time, right? So the real people that were fighting that war are pretty much dead. And therefore, fascism is starting to come back because there aren't people around that remember it firsthand and how horrible it is. It's the same thing with vaccines. Go read about the diphtheria epidemic in New York City in the 1880s and 90s. Go read about how fun diphtheria was. It's great.
Well,
your throat, it coats up your tongue and your throat of your kid, and then it gets so coated that they can't breathe, and then they just fucking die because they can't breathe. Babies in the city, right? Now we have a vaccine, and that doesn't happen anymore. So this anti-vax stuff is stupid. And I think LB is right about if you think about the financials of it, the drug companies make their money by, with treatments where you have to take the same drug over and over again, month after month for the rest of your life. A vaccine is you take once or twice and that's it. It's in that sense, it's not a profit center. It's basically good publicity for their outfit, saying, "Look, we did this."
Yeah, they get lots of bragging rights for sure.
Yeah,
there is money. There's still billions of doses of vaccine that are being produced.
Well, sure, they get
each
that
at about $40 a dose. It's it costs. That's a lot of money to be bringing in.
Sure,
but you're right. The real money comes in repetitive prescriptions. That's absolutely correct. Great points, Greg, and it sticks with you because you've got something to tell us about the lovely Kamala Harris.
Oh,
my favorite thing.
Look at that.
It's my favorite thing. Amazing.
So,
One cat has a T-shirt, by the way. If anyone wants this T-shirt,
I want that.
That's pretty awesome. I'm mesmerized. Okay, so I commissioned a piece that was written on my Prevail site this week by an attorney and a social worker. It's the same person. She is an attorney and a social worker named Lisa Marie Kerr. And she wrote basically the gist of the piece is that per the Constitution, the vice president is also the president of the Senate. And therefore, in theory, and this happened prior to 1937 for a variety of reasons, the vice president has the power to go to the Senate and basically say, okay, I'm in charge now. Sit down, Mitch.
Yes.
And Mitch McConnell can't do a damn thing about it. Now, if I wrote something like that, I would put it up and then I would run away and be afraid to look at the responses. But because Lisa Kerr is an attorney, when anybody that argued against it, she tried to find arguments for, and I think was pretty successful doing so. And the analogy that she used, not in the piece, but while talking about it, is that the very office of Senate Majority Leader is not in the Constitution. It's something that the Senate itself made up after. So the power that the Constitution gives to the Senate is given to the Vice President, who in turn cedes that power to whoever the Senate decides is going to be the Majority Leader. And her analogy is you can't have the water that's in the pitcher can't be bigger than the pitcher itself. So the Vice President is the pitcher, pours the water into this purple vessel that is Mitch McConnell, right? So basically, what this means is, and again, it's not a power play as such.
No.
The reason I want to step back for a second before we go to the Kamala as superhero visual. Okay, Mitch McConnell is not doing what historically has been done in this country for most of its operation. It's baked into the founding documents that we have two political parties and that they compromise. If you go back and you read the history of the United States, especially in the early to mid 19th century, 1830s and 40s, 50s, there's all these compromises. There's a very big, real rift because of slavery, which is awful, which the North does not want and the South wants to maintain. They don't want to break the Union up, and they keep compromising. There's the compromise of 1850s, the Missouri Compromise. And if you go, the word compromise appears so many times in American history books because that's what Congress did. They compromised. And everybody walked away, and they were all pissed off, which meant that the compromise worked incrementally. That's the way our system is designed. Bernie Sanders or somebody like that is never going to go there and wave his wand, and we're all going to have free health care. Nobody's going to pay for this ever. It's not going to work. That's not how the system works. It's incremental, and it's based on compromise. It's been that way for the entire history of the United States until about basically 20 years ago when McConnell took over during especially, it started with Newt actually in Bill Clinton's time, but in the Senate when McConnell took over during the Obama administration and said, fuck Obama, we're not going to do a damn thing. We're not voting on anything. We're not doing anything that guy wants. We're just going to sit on it, right? He's an obstructionist. So the idea of GOP governor, it's just obstruction. There's no ideas. There's no debate. There's no compromise. There's just obstruction. If you have one political party that exists to just say, hey, you guys that brought this idea up here, yeah, we're just going to ignore you. Fuck you. That's basically what they've been doing for the entire time Mitch McConnell has been in the Senate. I did a podcast yesterday on Stuttering John, and Richard Ojeda was on. He has a podcast too, and he pointed out on the thing, when Mitch McConnell, the Grim Reaper, takes all these bills and puts them away and says, we're not going to vote on this. The reason he doesn't isn't because he's afraid, the Republicans, he knows the Republicans aren't going to vote on it or aren't going to pass it. He's afraid that they are. They're bills that people want that he knows he can't justify. There's a cybersecurity bill sitting on his desk. Mm-hmm. Why the fuck aren't we voting on that, Mitch McConnell?
That's right.
There's a gerrymandering bill sitting on his desk. So if we bring these bills in, okay, and say, vote on this, every senator has to vote on it. There has to be a public record of them voting on it. Sometimes bills get changed. There's markup, right? There's compromise that takes place. Right now, none of that is happening because McConnell has not allowed it to happen. He's just said,
that's right.
Fuck you. We're not doing anything. Fuck you. That's McConnell. He's just
Senate is only, fuck you. The Senate, he's only been using the Senate for judges. That's it.
Yeah,
so
that's it.
That's it. So it's this whole,
not Merrick Garland, though.
No, not Merrick Garland.
So what your article suggests, though, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I would say
Kamala
this is
Harris,
what the article is saying. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Kamala Harris, in theory, on day one, could walk into the Senate, take the gavel from Mitch and say, sit down, purple hands, I'm speaking. and there's not a damn fucking thing he can do about it.
And that's
And then
because she's also the
she can
president of the
say-
Senate, right? Automatically.
That's right.
Basically, she
president
becomes the
of the
president of the Senate.
Senate.
So as VP, any VP really has been the president of the Senate up
That's
until
right.
now, according to, this is from your article, Article 1, Section 3, which also recognizes that the Senate can choose their other officers, including the majority and minority leaders. But Article 1, Section 3 does not give such other officers the vice president's power to preside, which includes the power to priority recognition. That is, allowing a senator to speak on the Senate floor and that to move a bill into debate. So it's really significant.
Yes.
Basically, Kamala is a superhero. She has superpowers as she heads into the next role of her life. As the president of the Senate, she can get stuff done that has not been done before. Now, why
as
hasn't
Lisa-
anyone
Lisa
known this
pointed
before?
Lisa pointed out also, she doesn't have to do it. She can just make it known that she can.
Right.
It's a nuclear option that she has, as Lisa put it, in her back pocket. She can go to Mitch and say, look, this is what I'm going to do. It's going to play really well on C-SPAN. It's going to be the most watched C-SPAN clip of all fucking time. Okay? So we can have that happen, or we're going to vote on the cybersecurity bill tomorrow. And we're going to vote on this, and you're going to confirm Doug Jones and fuck off. And, and so it shall be.
And then he just becomes a party leader, Mitch McConnell. He's not really in charge of the Senate. He's just the leader of the Republicans in the Senate.
Yes, which and there may well wind up being more. And this doesn't mean that the bills are going to pass. It just means that the obstruction can't happen, which makes the goddamn government not even work better. It makes it work. We have not had a functional Congress or a functional executive branch for 4 years, really, because you need both houses to pass the bills.
And Mitch McConnell took power that really wasn't his and abused it. It's the vice president's power. He's been abusing it. This wouldn't be Kamala or any vice president coming in and taking power. It's like you're abusing a power that was just a gift to you. That's it. I just granted this to you for you to do it, and you've abused it. So you lose your fucking toy, you bad purple-handed monster, right?
When my kids were in middle school, I used to chaperone it wasn't a dance, it was like a night that they had there. And I was in the gym, which was like 2 big basketball courts. So my job was to make sure that mostly it was like, middle school boys didn't kill each other while they were playing basketball. And there was always one kid that took the ball and wanted to play football with the basketball, right? So they were running around trying to tackle everybody. So invariably, every time I did this, I had to blow the whistle and scream really loud, something like, basketball only, we're no football in here, and scare them and make sure that everybody was actually playing basketball. And that's what Kamala would be. She would be me saying, we're going to play basketball, or we're going to shut this down. And then that's it.
Right, she doesn't have to actually do it.
Now, you're not supposed to play football with a basketball. That's not what you're supposed to do. And that's what Mitch is doing. He's playing football with a basketball. So
no, you want to jump in there?
Guy.
Well, I thought Greg looked familiar, and now that he mentions that previous role, I know why.
It's terrifying, really.
It's an excellent point that he makes, and I'll say one thing. If the GOP was in this position, they would do that in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
They would take that action, and that's been the difference between these two parties. They know that we're the more refined party that wants to kind of stay with tradition. And they've been running roughshod over us. And it's time to do things exactly like that. Exactly like what Greg wrote about in that fine piece. We got to start playing hardball, because they're going to keep playing hardball. Your Tom Cottons, your Mitch McConnells, these guys are going to do everything they can to cripple. They're already doing it. They're already trying to hobble Biden's administration before it begins. So they're going to be playing hardball. We need to play hardball too.
So why didn't we do this before? Why didn't Biden do it during
that's
the Garland thing? I mean, why didn't?
Yeah, well, Lisa Kerr talked about this, and I think there's a couple reasons, specifically for the Merrick Garland thing. First of all, Obama might not have wanted to. He wasn't by nature aggressive in that way. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh,
you're right.
I looked like I was frozen for a second. He isn't by nature. He's more conservative. Not politically, but by nature, he's more conservative. They might not have thought of it. It's possible. They just didn't think of it. Or I think the real reason is that he thought, as we all thought, that Hillary would win, and it wasn't worth stirring up all the stuff for. So Those are three possible reasons.
Interesting. Can you imagine the difference in the court? That would have been a significant difference if Mary Garland was sitting there right now. But
And they're all.
we can
I just make one point? They're all for Merrick Garland now as AG because they're terrified of Sally Yates. So now all of a sudden the GOP wants Merrick Garland. It's just funny that they'll.
Why is Sally Yates being so excluded from this? Why did she not make
because
the
they know
final
she's
cut?
going to go after them.
Yeah, but she's being totally.
Well, I don't know. She would have to recuse herself from some of the stuff.
Some of the stuff.
I don't.
Right.
It might not be. I love.
I think it's
her.
going to be Doug Jones. I think it's going to be Doug Jones. That's my thing.
Might be.
Yeah,
Doug Jones went after the KKK very successfully. So again, this is about sort of like what is Biden looking at in terms of prioritizing. It's not that he'll get out of the way of the Justice Department, but he just knows what will be on the plate. What's the FBI going to dump and go, here's our big threats that we haven't been able to get addressed because of this criminal presidency. And it could be this, the radicalization of Americans into becoming neo-Nazis and domestic terrorism.
It could be, or it could be the threat from the Russians and in the cyberspace. I mean, this hack. Did you see this earlier on today? This is the Microsoft president. Pretty much laying it out. Let me just change the graphic here so you can read it properly. Laying it out about what really is at stake with this latest hack, and it's a little terrifying, really. He goes on to say it's a moment of reckoning. This is not espionage as usual, even in the digital age, instance that created a serious technological vulnerability for the US and the world. In effect, this is not just an attack on specific targets, but on the trust and reliability of the world's critical infrastructure in order to advance one nation's intelligence agency. And he says the attack is still ongoing. I mean, the big headline from his story is that we are not through this yet. We are just seeing the start of it, really, potentially. It could be that these guys have just been sitting there looking for right now, spying on people's emails and what. Who knows what they've got planned to do with all these backdoor vulnerabilities that they intend to, or could intend to, exploit in a couple of years into the Biden administration. And we don't know the capability that they have because we haven't been keeping up with them. That to me seems like a particularly frightening thing that's waiting for us as we head into the Biden administration. And it's even, made even more frightening by the fact that he can't get any Pentagon, I'm talking about the Biden administration, can't get any Pentagon transition meetings going yet. That they're refusing to have any meetings with the Biden transition team from the Pentagon, which has been newly installed with this crew of Trump, apologists, I don't know what you'd call them, spies, whoever these guys are, who are now running the Pentagon. I mean, this to me is shaping up like a terrifying set of circumstances. We don't know yet what it will come to, but it is frightening. There's no doubt about it.
Terrifying.
Yeah.
It's terrifying, and it's almost over.
Mm-hmm.
We just got to get there.
Well, yeah. Well, it's going to take years, they think, to actually clear up this mess, to actually clear up this vulnerability, to clean it up, to get all these institutions back to where they need to be. This is not going to be done quickly. And to the Microsoft's president's words, there may be what we need is a global coalition. And let's see if the world steps up with the United States to insist on Russia backing down from all these cyber threats that they keep pursuing. Because so far, we've not yet seen that broad coalition around the world standing up to Russia. And it would be great if they could find a single issue like this one to stand up to Russia and say, we'll isolate you in the world if you continue to attack the systems that make our economies function.
See, I think
that's going to happen.
I actually feel optimistic about this, even as horrible as it is, and as serious as it is. Russia likes to think that it's this big player, but they're really not. We can, we're way more powerful than they are. Okay, if they piss us off enough, they are so fucked. It's beyond the measure of fuckedness can't be.
But haven't they pissed us off enough already? I mean, we really.
Not in the highest
they got their
government, but I think they may
there.
have.
Yeah.
I think Putin has outlived. I think Putin went too far.
Yeah,
I think they know it. I think his power is on the wane in Russia, and I think their best bet, if I'm them going forward, is to get rid of that guy, blame him.
That's right,
and just hope that they can, magically reset. But they'll try the same old shit. So I think that. And even the fact that we know about this now, a month before the transition, is sort of telling to me. These agencies, the Dutch agency, the Estonian agency, the Czech intelligence, they're good spy networks, right? They know this stuff. What they need is somebody strong in the United States that's going to come in and have a mandate as soon as he starts to take it to them. This is like a reminder to everybody. It's like if this is a long 4-season show, and now suddenly we're reminded of something that happened like on the second episode of the first season. I forgot about the Russian hack episode. Oh my God. Right?
Those Russians, we really don't like them.
When Joe comes in and we start going after these guys, we're mad about it still.
Yeah.
Because a lot has happened since then. So I'm not I'm not as pessimistic. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know anything about cyber stuff, but I feel like if they're going to mess with us in a bad way, Zev, like you say, we're going to join forces with our allies, and Russia's going to join forces with, I don't know, other Russians, I guess.
Well, they have their allies too. I mean, they certainly have China and Iran and whomever. But yeah, I'd like to see those allies stand up with the United States right now and combat this cyber threat.
Mm-hmm. Here's what I can say. I do have and Greg knows because Greg knows him. I do have someone that I can talk to, and I talk to about this in terms of a level of signals in cyber, and said, about Russia's capabilities and about our capabilities. And this was, albeit 3 years ago, I asked Dunk, I'm like, but are they really that, they can hack, but is it really like, how, wouldn't it just be like a choice and decision and like, we could just sort of shut them down? And he was like, I was like, how long would it take? Afternoon.
Yeah.
So I thought that now it was comforting to me. And, this is someone long retired, but it's about our strength and our capability. And you just have to have the leadership. You can't, if there's no leadership to say yes, because that's a big move. They have the leadership in Russia, obviously, to just go attack, right? And at will, right? We consider a lot of other things before we're going to do something like that. But do we have the capability to turn somebody's lights off in a big way and fuck them up? Yeah, we do. Yes, we do. So
can I say one thing? Since John Le Carre died this week, and Greg knows my grandfather was an NSA analyst his entire career after World War II intelligence, and he would be horrified at these hacks and what went on. But to speak to your point, LB, he said of John Le Carre, he said that was the guy who got it mostly right. Of all this espionage stuff, he's like,
that's what I've heard.
Right. Yeah, because he was intelligence. The man behind the books. But to your point, LB, one time I'd seen this Gene Hackman movie with Will Smith. I forget what it was called, but it all took place in DC, and it was about espionage and technology and stuff. And I just watched it, and I was at my grandfather's house the next day, and I was like, I saw this amazing movie last night, and they had this technology where they could just zoom in from a satellite to a person walking down Fifth Avenue and ID them. And my grandfather, who never spoke about his career to his wife, to anybody, he looked at me and he goes, "That's nothing." And I was like, "Oh my God!" It was the only thing he ever said about his career. He just looked at me and he was like, "That's nothing." And I was like, "Oh my God!" Yeah, I was like,
what a good story.
It's amazing. Yeah. I mean, you guys, it's like everyone can laugh all you want about having these really big guys in your family, and it's a gift to have them. But that's what it's like. They don't say anything ever, ever, ever. So when they do, it's like that. And you're like, ha! It's like, oh my God. So,
it's interesting, just as I just close that thought off a little bit about Biden and Putin. I looked up this quote because I remember him saying this. So way back when Mr. Biden was visiting Mr. Putin when he was the prime minister, he said, "Mr. Prime Minister, I'm looking into your eyes," because earlier on, President George W. Bush had said that he had seen Putin's soul, but Mr. Biden did not see Mr. Putin's soul. He says, "I don't think you have a soul." Mr. Biden says he told Mr. Putin. The Russian leader sounded something less than offended, replying also with a smile, "We understand each other." So very wryly agreeing that he does not have a soul either. So, that's the kind of guy that we're going to see, the relationship we're going to see facing off against each other come January the 20th. And, this hack that has happened is certainly going to be a reminder to the Biden administration that they need to do something quick and quite serious with Putin. Because, at this point in 2016, they had found out that the Russians were interfering in the Russian elections. And what Obama did was immediately sent home a bunch of diplomats for Russian diplomats from the United States, and also took away those strongholds that they had. So that was around this time in 2016. There was an immediate response to something that they had done. We've had nothing from the White House so far. Now, it would be interesting to see what's going to happen on January 20th, because I bet you will see a pretty swift response then. All of which is to bring me full circle to something else, which is it's Narativ's 4th birthday today. Well, actually this week. Yay! Because 4 years ago, I published my first story on Narativ, which was the Russia House. Where is it? Here it is. And, how Vladimir Putin's Kremlin Inc. is pulling the levers of power in the next White House, and why President-elect Donald J. Trump doesn't mind. And that's what started all of that off. And then we got to this podcast, which I'm thrilled to say is much more fun than writing long form stories. So, it's
a lot of work, though.
It is, but I get to do it with great people like you guys. So thank you very much for being on the show this week, especially because you're not our regular on here. So it's great to have you on. And I know LB and Greg want to stick around for a little bit, so we're going to do a little bit of business after you'll hear a little bit of an announcement. But that's our show for this week. Any final thoughts from anybody?
Just happy anniversary. Happy birthday, Zev. And have a great holiday. LB, Greg, great to see you guys.
You too.
Have a great holiday. Everybody stay safe, and we'll see you on the other side of this.
To you too.
Thanks, Noel. You too. Much love.
Thank you. Peace out.
Love you. Love to the family. Peace out.
It's great. All right. We'll be right back after this, and we'll be back with a few more thoughts. So on the last Narativ Live, I was on with two guests that were not these two people who have a lot to say about this particular topic, but I had a chance to address the issue of Eric Garland, and I know both LB and Greg wanted to address it as well. So here we are. I'm going to let them speak, and we'll respond after that. LB.
Okay, I'll go. I just cleaned my lens, guys. Sorry, it was fuzzy there the whole time. Look, we're sad. So I just want to start with that. We're sad. And I know there's been a sort of a clamoring. There was a clamoring for Greg and I to say something and to speak. And I just want everyone to know that we were silent because we were listening. And we were letting people be heard. These aren't our stories to tell. So when folks are saying they have a story to tell, they have something to say, I think you gotta be quiet. Silence isn't always something to sort of turn into this, make it mean anything other than maybe people are listening. Maybe it's not your time to talk, right? And so it's weird with Twitter because we are all doing work together, but it's not like there's an HR department. And there's not, and public Twitter is something altogether different than the conversations, and just because public Twitter, we were quiet doesn't mean that there wasn't a whole lot of conversation happening privately, to listen and to sort through some stuff. But the women who they wanted to be heard. I don't think it's up to someone like me or anyone else publicly to come in and try to frame what they were saying and do anything with it. I got to say something, guys. I know I was like hesitating. Do I address this or not? I saw people doing that. I was really disappointed. And I was listening to the women also say, don't talk about it that way. That's not what it is. So, it is Twitter. Everyone's going to take stuff and run with it and do what their own thing with it. I get that, but it's not your story to tell. Stop framing something. I'm sorry. I had to say that. And I know that's a tricky thing to come in and say, and I really struggle with whether I was going to scold a little bit. But, and I don't mean to be the scolder, but if you're doing that, you're not listening and you're not letting people be heard. And what are we doing here, guys, if we're going to come in and do that? That didn't feel right to me, for me to do. So I didn't do it. I was listening. And what I heard made me really sad. It did. I'm sad. I'm sad.
Greg, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I echo everything LB said. Particularly about the silence. There's kind of this clamor, or there was around this, a clamor for everybody to sort of go on, take to Twitter and denounce in a public way. And as if that was almost like people were keeping score on that count. And I understand that, and that's fine. But from where I sit, you mentioned HR department. I worked in an HR department, and when something happens like this, and a lot of people are now in the comment section asking what happened, and we can't really get into what happened.
Not our story.
It's not our story, but there were allegations were made. Okay, and we looked into them. I looked into them, and I talked to a lot of people. I've spent a lot of time on the phone the last week, a lot of time in DMs, just communicating with people. And I'm not going to talk about that. Just I'm also sad. I'm shocked. I'm disappointed. More than anything, I'm disappointed, and I'm a little angry, honestly, at what happened. So, and I know people want these pronouncements on Twitter, and I just don't feel like it adds anything to this. It's not my story at all to tell. So I'm removed from it. But the actions, I think, speak for themselves, and the actions, at least now, are that we're here and he's not. And that's the cause of the sadness. There's other causes too, but it's that's where we're at. So
people also need to understand that we work together, but it's a collaboration. We don't really have an enterprise together, or we don't do, there's nothing there that makes anyone beholden to anybody else, except that we would like each other and collaborate with each other. So it is very personal. All of this is very personal, and on both sides. There's certainly we know many of the women involved, and we know Erica, and so it's very difficult for us to manage this, and because we don't have there's no bosses here, there's no structure, there's nothing to help us guide our decisions. We're just operating as a collaboration of people that work alongside each other to expose the truths in our different vehicles. So it's it's more complicated than it would be even if it were a corporate environment. And so,
we're very loose here. We try to bring you guys a real raw thing because that's what's been missing. We're here to unpack a criminal presidency. I got on Twitter to unpack a criminal presidency. That's the focus. But words are powerful. Words are really powerful, everybody. And there's a responsibility, if it's not your story, to come in and frame something. Just want everyone to be, we try to be really responsible. As loose as we are, we're responsible with our words as much as we can be. And that's all I can control. So, we're bummed out.
And it has taken a lot of time. Both of your time in particular. It's taken a lot of hours and phone calls and careful and caring investigation. And I think that's people don't realize that, or maybe don't know that. But I think it's important for them to know that was happening along the way, while there was silence, because you were listening. You were listening.
Yeah, and we want everybody involved in this situation to heal from it, and I think sympathize with everybody.
Be okay.
For sure.
Yeah. Be okay.
And,
It was a lot of pain. A lot of pain got expressed, a lot, and that's sad.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sorry that people went through a lot of pain. I'm sorry for you.
Okay, well let's leave it at that. And thanks very much for watching A Narrative tonight, everybody. Narrative is funded by viewers like you. Support our independent journalism at patreon.com/narrative.